All right, welcome. This is News Compass, another edition, another version. And we're talking about the downsided devolution in the country. The president said, work with what's in your coffers. We don't have enough to add you up. In fact, we have even bypassed the threshold as required by the Constitution regarding, of course, the cash flow to the devolved units across the 47 counties. On the other end, governors are decrying 316 billion, say they want 335 billion. That case is now handled by the highest court in the land as the Supreme Court President, that is David Kenani Maraga, has given the direction within 30 days to come up with something substantive. On the other end, politically, the Bicameral House has fronted two committees that includes what many pundits say contains hardliners when it comes to debating issues of importance, especially the crippled county economies, with more than 20 counties that have not paid their staff for July 2019. Be part of the discussion. The hashtag is News Compass. The short code is 40920. Before we get to the nitty-gritties, this is what the president said yesterday.
Because sometimes we tend to operate as if money is inatiririka tu. No? Money is limited, resources are limited. Yeah? And really, I just wish to even take this opportunity once again to plead to our houses of parliament, both the Senate and the National Assembly. We cannot give that which does not exist. Let us take what we have. Ikiongezeka, tutaongeza. Lakini jameni, let us just take what we have. What are we arguing about? Because kama ingekuweko, si tungewapatia. Right? We give what we can because we want to ensure that we deliver services. Why now? What are we arguing about? Because at the end of the day, hasabu ikifanywa namna hii ndio itatokea. Why don't we approve this bill? Mulete pesa hapa, watu walipo mishahara yao, dawa ipelekwe kwa mahospitali, wananchi waweze kuendelea na maisha yao. Why are we punishing them? Because we are arguing until we want more.
All right, welcome. That is the president, of course, a replica of what he did say earlier this month on, of course, the revenue bill. We talked to Ben Mulua. He is governance expert and analyst. Ben, thank you for coming on board. And I just want to go direct into it.
Yes.
When you reflect at the infancy of the devolved units, the embryonic nature of what we incepted under the new constitution, and you reflect back on the start point, that was after the elections of 2013. Do you do so, as many have done, with a deep sense of disappointment and failure?
Not at all. First, thank you for having me here tonight. And the one thing I know for a fact is devolution has proven to be something that this country really needed for a very long time. When you look at the milestones, when you look at the achievements of devolution in the last 7 years, before the advent of devolution, marginalization was real.
Okay,
it was
especially
not,
in the frontline counties.
It was not a story. Not even in the northern frontier. There are many areas that even previously were considered to be anti-government that were deliberately denied development. So the advent of devolution has completely changed the way Kenyans have been looking at government and governance. I'll give you specific examples. It is on record that since 1963, Mandera County performed the first cesarean section in the year 2014. I think it was around October. That was quite something because you can imagine in the entire county, and Mandera County is almost half of this country geographically, but there was not one single facility whereby a cesarean section could be undertaken. Devolution started in 2013, and by 2014, already there was a facility that could do that. We have seen in very many parts of this country where roads are being done where they have never existed.
Practically in my own county.
Yes.
That's Wajir County.
Absolutely.
We have the first tarmac road.
Yes.
25
I remember actually it was a huge feat because the residents could not believe that finally there was tarmac in that county. I have seen in counties whereby dispensaries now and health centers are available within villages that initially were a mirage. We have seen actually early childhood education taking a totally different direction since the advent of devolution.
All right.
We have seen the improvement of agriculture. I'll give you a specific example, like in Makueni County, because now that we have a county government that has focused on facilitating farmers.
Right.
There is a fruit processing plant. We have seen very many counties coming up with different aspects of that. Unfortunately, there are people who are still stuck in the mindsets of 1960, where power had to be consolidated at a particular center, whereby everybody had to be coming on their knees, begging for development to come to them. Devolution has shattered that. That's why you are seeing the kind of pull and push that we are currently experiencing. But in my view, devolution is here with us to stay, and devolution, despite the teething problems that we have experienced, devolution is succeeding. That's a fact.
Mentioning that, and of course the real reality on the ground, and of course the county coffers, which are speaking financially, then according to the COG, that is COG Chair Wycliffe Oparanya, will be unable to roll out services or to financially undertake what it ought to have been undertaking. But how do we then fix the problem at the moment? The mammoth task ahead with regards to the ringing endorsement of what we, or many Kenyans do believe, is the way out of the political mistakes that we made post-1963.
One of the key things we have to agree with the Council of Governors is the fact that there has been a lot of tussles between themselves and the national government. The reasoning and the primary reason behind this is that we have still individuals in the national government who have never transitioned themselves. They have never devolved their minds to the new constitution. We still have people stuck with that mindset whereby power had to be centralized. And that is very key in understanding the challenges that devolution has continued to face. Truth is, there has been challenges. There has been a rampant corruption in counties. There are governors who are elected into office with a mindset that now these are resources for us to eat and steal. But that cannot entirely overshadow the achievements. Because we also have governors who have really strived to achieve so much with so little that it even begins to challenge Kenyans as to what the national government has been doing since 1963. And in my view, there are individuals in the national government who feel threatened. You know, initially, people had to come worshipping State House and perhaps the National Treasury for development to reach them. Now we have people doing things in Lamu, we have people doing things in Kajiado, we have people doing things in Trans Nzoia, and they don't need to come to Nairobi to beg anybody. So that is a mindset that I would expect individuals who are frustrating some of the efforts of the county governments to get over. Because I want to believe even the thinking behind the inclusion of devolution in the constitution. The drafters went round collecting views from Kenyans from all walks of life. And one of the key things that came out very prominently was the reality that there are areas that have deliberately been marginalized. We may not need to mention specifics, but you remember like there was a cry, like in the central Kenya, when President Moi was in power. Reason is they felt that there was skewed development. There was a cry from Nyanza when perhaps Mzee Jomo Kenyatta and President Moi were in power because the majority were considered to be descending to the existing powers. But today that is a totally different ballgame. So whether you are NASA, whether you are Jubilee, whether you are Ekuru Okot, whether you are whatever framework, people are now getting services. So my take is Kenyans must fight very hard to protect the gains that we have made, especially through devolution. About the leadership, those are small basic things that can be fixed. If we are electing corrupt fellas, we can always kick them out. Already there are examples of that happening. So gradually I'm sure we'll be on our footing.
Let's get then perhaps the picture that's playing out, or the sense of the political rivalry and the counter-accusations of arrogance and hubris by members of the Senate and the bicameral, the members of the Senate and the National Assembly. Yet Kenyans on the outward-looking sense of the fence are observing the political events over the division of revenue bill with extraordinarily cynical nature. Is this problem a manifestation of a political failure by either the Senate or the National Assembly in ensuring that services at the counties are halted, because that has been the precipitating factor?
I would not look at it as a failure per se by either of the houses. You know, as a country, for us to understand the kinds of problems we are facing, we must be conversant with history. And we must take time to understand the genesis of some of the attitudes that we are seeing in leaders displaying today. Right. At the advent of devolution, and this is something many people never projected. Many politicians did not imagine that the position of governorship was going to be a very powerful position.
All right.
Many politicians. That's why you realize even most of the drafters of the 2010 Constitution who were in Parliament that time, all of them rushed to become senators.
Of course, there has been that sort of scramble.
Their thinking,
their
thinking was that the Senate was going to be a very powerful house. Unfortunately, that is not what they put it on paper. It was in their minds. Now, it has come to the attention of a majority of politicians that we have 47 centers of power that are almost independent of what is happening in Nairobi.
All right.
So for these people to continue demonstrating that they have some sort of power, they have to continue pulling and pushing to demonstrate. Now that is on the one side. Then on the second side, the supremacy battles between the Senate and the National Assembly started from day zero. When the new parliament was sworn in 2013. Okay. And unfortunately, this has not been resolved. And unfortunately, this can only be resolved by either amending the law or ensuring that there is substantial clarity between the roles of the two houses. Okay. Now, when I was talking about the history we have been taking ourselves as a country, there is a very dangerous precedent that was set a while back, and Kenyans never paid attention to that, by the current majority leader in the National Assembly. When he had an altercation with the former Bomet governor, Isaac Ruto, when he told him, "Mi pesa si ya mama yako." What I'm witnessing today is the same attitude that Duale presented back in 2015. 2014, 2015, if I'm not wrong. Because I listened to the president. There's two things that we have to point out from what the president said yesterday. On the one hand, his passionate appeal to these two houses to resolve their differences is something that really needs to be supported by all Kenyans, because that has to come to an end. But there's an unfortunate thing that the president is wading himself into. Believe you me, it is none of the business of the president to decide how much goes to which government.
All right. He has no such power.
He has no such power. He has no such capacity, and it is none of his business. He needs to be advised accordingly by his advisors. What the president needs to do is, by this time, should have called the leadership of the two houses so that they can arrive at a consensus. When he starts reading an ultimatum to Kenyans, he needs to understand that there is no particular sect of population that the president has where he collects his taxes so that he can dictate how much he wants to give to the governors.
Okay. Given that you have mentioned, of course, pertinent issues, but I just want also to point out that let's perhaps unearth what the president did express. It's not the first time he did so also at the start of this month.
Yes.
But again, when he speaks about that, the general picture that comes out, or the normal Kenyan retrieves from his statement, is that when you look at the economy, it's tied to a debt burden.
Absolutely.
And this is an affliction of economic terrorism, according to many Kenyans.
Absolutely.
Our income is dissipating, unemployment is soaring, manufacturing is on the doldrums, and yet we continue to sign on dotted lines of further agreements for loans that we know, and it's established fact, acknowledged, that it's unsustainable. So
absolutely.
Where do we draw the line in terms of the, the genuineness of this entire
Again, Ayub, you bring out something very interesting, because when you mention about the debt burden that this country is facing, again, that is not the problem of devolution, and that is not the problem of governance. Believe you me. In fact, if there's one person who needs to take responsibility for that, it is the president and his cabinet.
Meaning then that when he outlines that...
So, in my view, because the haggling that we are witnessing between the Senate and the National Assembly over the division of revenue is a difference of about 10-20 billion shillings. We have continued to see a lot of wastage from the national government, a lot of projects that really cannot quantify or cannot present any specific value for money. So in my view, I have not seen any effort from the national government agreeing to even make half a step to meet the counties halfway and say, well, given that this is the position, and agreeing to the position of the president that there is no money. Because the truth is, as I mentioned here the other day, the truth is the treasury is broke. So what needs to be demonstrated is also commitment from the national government. By walking halfway and saying, we are willing to sacrifice some of these projects that we are currently focusing on as the national government, so that the counties can also be able to thrive. Because in essence, what we are saying is we are punishing devolution for the mistakes of the national government and the treasury. And that is what Kenyans need to be able to understand. That essentially the problem that even the president finds himself at the moment is not the doing of devolution. It is not the doing of county governments.
Meaning then that we agree that the national government has failed to offer lessons from the top, and that the county governments are in a vacuum, not knowing who to emulate when it comes to county funds or the national government utilization, because corruption is also rife at the national level.
Absolutely, because we need to work with facts and figures. Through like when you look at the last financial year that ended in June this year, our budget was about 3.1 trillion shillings, not very different from what we have this financial year. The disbursements to county governments were to the tune of about 310, 315 billion shillings the last financial year. Unfortunately, up to June 30th, 2019, at the close of that financial year, the disbursements that actually ended up with the county governments were not in excess, were just about 80–85%. So the treasury failed even to remit a whole 15%. So here we are. In essence, what we are saying is, as we continue in this push and pull, we are denying the ordinary wananchi out there, the Wanjiku, basic medical services that are currently under the functions of the devolved governments. Now we have seen nurses and doctors threatening left, right, and center to go on strike. In essence, we are denying the basic services that essentially need to keep this country going forward. We are denying farmers opportunities to be able to either nurture their crops or even sell whatever produce that they are coming up with. So in my view, really, this debate needs to be brought to an end. And this is what needs to happen. I don't want to use the particular words that Duale used then, but Parliament, the National Assembly and the Senate need to agree that essentially what we are haggling about here is like we are debating whether we should keep this water in a cup or in a bottle, because it is still water and this money belongs to Kenyans. There is no point of people even getting so agitated over very basic things. Let's agree if a difference of 5 billion or 10 billion is what is going to end this stalemate, we can always rearrange or reorganize the budget so that this country moves forward.
Okay, moving on, and that again will point to perhaps what the average Kenyans will want a way out of this, the easy, immediate fix to the standoff that we have at the moment, because at least 20 counties are expected or are on strike, who includes, of course, among them the protesting fellas, the Kenya Union of Clinical Officers, the Kenya National Union of Nurses, the Kenya National Union of Medical Laboratory Technologists, and the Kenya National Union of Pharmaceutical Technologists. And this will hamper one of the president's before agenda. So, Ben, thank you. We hit the break. Come back. Take your tweets, sample them, and talk to Laikipia Senator John Kinyua, who is on the line. Could not make it because of that journey he has been embarking on en route to Nairobi. So we'll talk to him in his capacity as the chair of the Devolution Committee of the Senate as well. His county Laikipia staff are on strike. We'll seek his sentiments as we come back from the short break into the final segments of the program. 40920 is the short SMS code, and the hashtag on Twitter is News Compass. We are coming back after the short break. Stay tuned. All right, we don't do this show alone, so I'm here to sample some of your feedback. We get to your notifications, and starting off with your feedback. Josephine Omaida says, and as counties continue to feel the effects of the cash crunch, Parliament is working on a bill to cap the government borrowing that was pushing for the country into a debt trap. And this is the picture that she has encompassed and includes inequality, corruption, arrogant politicians, discrimination, lack of democracy, political power by money and force, conflict and bad administration. And then stepping on that is the bad constitution. Thank you. We get to what Laura Makoka is saying. It's high time that our governors wake up from the slumber and begin to see how they can improve on these revenues. Now, that has been the thin and the fragile line of where exactly the money allocated to them does, of course, go. Mike says one of the greatest drawback with devolution was that we devolved thieves instead of development, and the hashtag to uses News Compass. Of course, the discussion is ongoing, and the Kenyans should fight so hard to protect the constitution for good it has on for this country. And perhaps one from here, counties hold services over cash. That's according to David Orundo on Twitter. Top Mashariki says this amount ought to be readily available to county governments as it is already charged, allocated and granted by the constitution. And one final one here from Sheila, because we can sample all of them. The amount allocated to each county from the national government should go towards development. The county should then generate its own revenue. The counties rather should then generate its own or their own revenue to pay salaries of the workers. They continue to stream in, and of course they pertain the discussion that we are having here on the program, pertaining the discussion at hand. So I get back to my seat. And Madam Director, do we have the Senator on air? Yes, so we will be having him shortly. He was supposed to be here, but could not make it because of course, the traffic that is evident on our roads. But we continue the discussion with Ben Muller, who is on set. But Ben, yes. I just want to online. Okay, we have him. Do we have him? All right. Yes. Good evening, Senator. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
All right. And I just want to go straight into it. Of course, you serve as the chair of the Senate Devolution Committee, and your county, Laikipia County, is one of the counties that continues, of course, to experience the effect of the cash crunch across the devolved units. The senators, where you belong, are supporting or in support of 335 billion Kenya shillings, and the effect is felt by the common mwananchi. What is the easy, immediate fix out of the current mess in the counties?
What is happening, like the day before yesterday, the Finance Committee of the Senate,
all right,
the Treasury,
all right,
and COG, they had a meeting.
All right.
And in the meeting, they had a resolution whereby they said what it should be done, and they had an agreement.
Okay.
That 50% of the money that was given last year,
okay,
that is 314 billion, 50% of it is supposed to be given to the counties.
Okay.
So that we don't need to have these issues of Kenyan suffering.
Okay.
So that it was only one thing, they needed a signature.
Okay.
Of the Attorney General to authorize that, so that at least it can be taken to court.
Okay.
Because there's that case in court. And today I am aware that that letter was taken to court.
Okay.
So that from maybe next week, at least our counties can have money, so that we get ourselves in that trouble. Because it's true what you have said, that Kenyans will suffer.
Oh, all right.
But the issue of 335 billion, it came about by we have a commission.
All right.
Commission of Revenue Allocation that is chaired by Dr. James. And that commission is provided by the Constitution. Its work is to advise the National Assembly and basically Parliament the amount of money that is supposed to go to the county. And it gave that because of inflation, it said because last year we have been given 314 billion.
All right.
It put inflation of 6.9, and that's how we arrived at 335 billion.
Okay.
And the National Assembly, when we went to mediation, the Senate had agreed to come down to 327.
All right.
And the National Assembly raised the amount from 314 to 316.
Okay.
And there was no agreement. But as you realize today, we have already a new mediation committee. Senate has already appointed some senators.
So did Parliament.
So is Parliament. So at least I know we are going to have this issue solved amicably.
All right.
My player. Yeah.
Okay, before I let you go, Senator, one important question is how to go about the cleaning up of the current mess that we are witnessing, the sibling rivalry, which equally punctuated the first-term administration of the president between 2013 and 17. Looking at the formations of the both committees, respectively, of the Senate and the National Assembly, can you instill in Kenyans, as the chair of the Devolution Committee, that they should remain sanguine or hopeful, rather, or optimistic about a solution that will have positive effect on the devolved units across the 47 counties?
I can tell Kenyans without fear of contradicting myself that we are going to solve this issue amicably. And one, it had happened, if you remember, 2015.
All right.
There was such stalemate, and it was solved amicably. And if you remember what the president said yesterday when he was in Nakuru, he did say that we should solve this issue. And because we listened to our president,
all right,
I do agree that, and I'm hopeful that this committee that has been formed, mediation committee, will solve this issue amicably. And we all represent Kenyans.
All right.
We want services to go to Mwananchi.
All right.
And I want to assure Kenyans, as chairman of Devolution, that Devolution is there to stay.
Okay.
And we are all working towards making sure that Devolution works.
All right.
And as a Senate, as provided by Article 96 of the Constitution, we are the defender of Constitution.
All right.
The defender of the county.
Asante.
And that's exactly what we want to do.
Okay.
So I want to assure Kenyans that the services will continue. Our counties are not going to grind to a halt.
All right.
Because we know many of functions have been devolved. Health is devolved. Agriculture is devolved. So if those key functions, and as you know, the big four are supposed to be working, and many of them can only succeed if our counties work. Because health being devolved, it can only work if we have resources going to our counties. Okay. And that's exactly what we are looking at. And I want to assure Kenyans that we are not going to allow our counties to go into a hold. And I want to encourage our governors to use the funds that will go to our county. All right. Yeah, because that's where the rubber meets the tire. Okay. Thank you, Senator. We'll have you next week, by the grace of God. Asante sana. Thank you for your contribution. Thank you, and I'll make a point of coming to the studio. Okay, anytime. It's your home. All right, thank you. Thank you, Senator John Kinyo. He is the senator of Laikipia County. But Ben, equally we touched on some issues. He said that, which is pretty much pertinent, it remains to be an important one, that devolution is here to stay. Particularly, let me just point out some of the counties that have so far or are on strike. Muranga County, Laikipia, the Senator's County, Isiolo, Marsabit, Kitui, Meru, Tharaka Nithi, Bungoma, Kisumu, and those that have issued a strike as of 13 August 2019. Homa Bay, Machakos, Nyeri, Taita Taveta, Kericho, Elgeyo Marakwet, West Pokot County, Nakuru, Baringo, Samburu, and Embu. Looking at the happenings at the moment, we have the national government at some point saying that, come on, hold on, guys. We have given you money in the last financial year. Yeah, there were cases of mismanagement and mishandling of the county cash. You're asking for more, we can't give you. What we have given you is enough or allocated you. And then you look at the national government, there is an utter economic mismanagement equally. So where do we draw the line? And is it a case of incapacitating an existing capacity, both at the national and at the county level?
One thing that I stated when we were beginning, and which is coming out very clearly, is the fact that it is none of the business of the national government to dictate or to decide either how much goes to the counties or how those counties spend their money. There are constitutional institutions that have been established to do that. At the top of that, we have the Senate. It is the Senate that should be haggling with the governors. We gave you this kind of money, and now you squandered it. So it is our view that this, and we are going to recommend to the Commission of Revenue Allocation to reduce. It is not the president. It is not the CS Treasury. It is not anybody in the national government.
Okay.
So what we are witnessing is arrogance and non-existent oversight role that is being assumed by the national government.
Right.
Because for the national government, again, it is the National Assembly that should be telling ministries, like if you're the CS Agriculture or CS Mining, we gave you this much last year. You didn't utilize your money properly, so we are going to slash that budget. So this idea of the national government playing the role of executive and oversight and implementer and all these things, it is not agreeable. That's why, and I agree with the senator, that Kenyans must really stand up to be able to defend and protect devolution.
Right.
It is a young baby, 7 years old. The national government has been here for the last 56 years. So let everybody actually undertake their constitutional role. It is unfortunate because right now there is too much clamor about a referendum. But it seems even there are people who are interested in changing a constitution that they have not even understood. Understood even up to tonight. So that distinction is very important to come through. Secondly, you have mentioned about the counties that continue to issue strike notices, and even the ones that their workers have gone on strike. The one thing that I think Kenyans must be able to appreciate is that there are also counties that are not in this quagmire or stalemate. Perhaps we need to be able to interrogate and understand how have they been able to get around this through the crisis. For example, the Nairobi County. Nairobi County under Governor Sonko has a workforce of about 14,000 and a wage bill of about 1.4 billion shillings every month. Yet, actually, as we are speaking now, salaries to Nairobi County workers were long paid.
Smooth.
So it means there is also a challenge and there is a problem with some of the governors in the way they have been managing their resources or the way they have been planning their resources. You know, money from government, you don't wake up one morning and write a letter to the CRA and the control of budget and receive the money by afternoon. It's a lengthy process, including approvals that are required by different institutions. So what governors need now to be focusing on when they are sitting at the Council of Governors is to agree on the basics, that there is no way they must permit this kind of services grinding to a halt because of perhaps negligence at some level or lack of better planning by the counties. If there are counties, especially the first-time governors, who found some issues within their administrative functions, then they should be seeking that kind of administrative support from the COG, and also seeking wisdom from the governors who are making it. Perhaps, like now, it's unfortunate because you know, when county workers are not paid, then they don't report to duty. Yet there are so many services that are offered on a daily basis that actually is grinding to a halt this economy. So next year, they'll be back looking for more money from the exchequer, yet there are no services, they are not generating revenue. So now we are, but now, as I finish up on that, there is something I would have wished we challenge or seek clarity from the senator, that he chairs the devolution. He chairs the devolution committee. It is 7 years since devolution came in. We have witnessed this quite a number of times before. What assurance are we getting from the Senate that we are never going to witness this again? Because we cannot be coming to grinding to a halt
all the time,
every year. When just immediately after reading the budget was read 2 months ago. It is unfortunate.
And that is the same day that the committee from both houses of parliament failed to agree on a consensus.
Exactly.
Minutes before Rotich did come on the floor of the House to present the financial year.
It is 2 months down the line. So there is failure of leadership actually from these two houses. And my proposal would be, as he's suggesting that they had a meeting yesterday, they need to go back to what I said. This money belongs to none of them. It doesn't belong to the Senate, it doesn't belong to
the taxpayers' money.
Yes, it is taxpayers' money. And what they're haggling about is how much money is going back to the taxpayer so that they can continue receiving services. So this is an issue that can be resolved actually by tomorrow afternoon, so that money can be discharged to counties.
Okay, let's then get perhaps the debate over what we are witnessing in the country, more or less call it the chalk and cheese argument, which of course is of no significance to me, you, and the millions of other Kenyans who are watching the events at the moment with bated breath. However, is this perhaps a point with which what we have at the moment, the bicameral committee formed
Yes.
now. We have the COG on the other end.
Yes.
And we have the Supreme Court, which was brought in by the senators and the governors
Yes.
as perhaps the last bastion of hope
Absolutely.
to save the devolved system of governance.
Yes.
Where do we draw the line? Because me, you, and the other Kenyans want assurances and
Yes.
guarantees
Yes.
that there's going to be money
Yes.
to run the affairs of the counties. We don't need to stop all the time
Yes.
because of senseless political rivalry.
Absolutely. In fact, when you talk about drawing the line, as I've indicated, and I think this should be a wake-up call to Kenyans, perhaps to agree that we don't need even a referendum in the first place, because the constitution we currently have is extremely explicit in terms of the roles of which constitutional institution or which arm of government. It is extremely clear. In fact, most of those paragraphs are most of those articles are just a few paragraphs that are extremely straightforward. What we are witnessing is a useless ego battle. In fact, it is ego. It has got nothing to do with the availability or lack of certain resources, whereby Parliament, the National Assembly, is keen on ensuring that they assert themselves as the main guy here. Yet the Senate, on the other hand, is keen to ensure that they remain the custodians of devolution.
All right.
So this is a useless ego battle that Kenyans are being subjected to. And believe me, it's unfortunate because as you are speaking, and this is a conversation I was having with somebody just the other day. The minute we have health workers failing to report on duty, even for a single day, we are losing Kenyans. In fact, one of the key things that maybe the Senate needs to present to the National Assembly is to reorganize or rearrange the budgets that we have been allocating to national security. Currently, we are working with a budget of about 400 billion shillings on national security. Yet, one of the biggest threats that we have been talking about is terrorism.
All right.
Actually, some of these strikes that we have continued to witness by health workers have cost Kenyans more lives than terrorism in the last 10 years. That's the truth. When we have lack of medication, when we have lack of competent personnel because counties are unable to pay doctors,
All right.
what we are in essence doing is we are losing Kenyans, like the scenario I was giving the other day. Right now, we have the Kenyatta National Appeal recently sent out an appeal seeking to raise only 230 million shillings for a cancer center.
There's a budget.
Yes. Yet we have 400 billion shillings to go buy those armored police carriers that are Mutumba from China that are currently derelict, to go buy more guns, to maybe go buy, I don't know what, for purposes of national security and defense.
All right.
Yet Kenyans are dying from very basic stuff. A small cholera outbreak and you find 15, 20, 30 Kenyans are dying.
All right.
So we need also these leaders to take time and really reorganize their priorities. I mean, our health as a country is our wealth.
All right.
There is no way this country can progress. The Big Four agenda will remain a mirage when we have a sick nation.
All right.
So my appeal to the president would be to try and focus and really look at what would be able to engineer this country to progress.
Okay,
Yes.
then aside from the bicameral rivalry, because I just want to point out another important perspective with which, if not contained, then with proper policies, this is going to be having an enormous effect on our foreign policy equally. I just want to point out this as perhaps, do you see a possibility? Is there, do you remain optimistic about the formation of the respective committees today by both the National Assembly and the Senate to find out a solution or reach a consensus? And does that further perhaps cushion the next remaining days of the financial year 2019-2020? And do you see a possibility of failure, as was the case on budget reading day 2019?
As I indicated, what you're being treated to in public is largely drama and theatrics. What these leaders are refusing to address are just their egos. If we would agree that, I mean, at the end of the day, we are here as elected leaders, all of us to serve Kenyans. Believe me, this is something that can be resolved within half an hour. In fact, half an hour is a very long time. Just the same way we're seated here and agree. hii maneno mingi tuachane nayo.
ABCD?
Yeah, let's move forward.
All right.
But unfortunately, we are not seeing that because there are people who are still trying. That grandstanding is purely a supremacy issue. And in the long run, as I'm indicating, it is costing Kenyans a lot. My take would be, we need a permanent solution. And this permanent solution is going to come from leaders also taking time to understand clearly what is expected of either of the houses and agree that, you see, most of these MPs, like for example, is Garissa County one of the counties that are on strike?
Not in that list.
Yes.
Not, no.
But you're going to find that some of the counties whereby we have employees on strike, we have members of parliament from those counties. I mean, those members of parliament or the MPs and the senators don't come from State House where there is no strike.
All right.
So they need to agree that, in essence, they are punishing their own electorate in these unnecessary ego battles that they are treating us to in Nairobi.
A sense of a bite back. Biting
What we
have
have here is a case of hyenas haggling with the vultures who should be eating the carcass.
All right.
While they are arguing about that, the carcass is actually rotting. So it's really unfortunate. I think these leaders really need to wake up from that.
All right, an important point, and I just want to get the expansive view of the discussion that we are having here. And
Yes.
we just played, our reporter Diana did report on Kenya now
Yes.
in pursuit of seeking a non-permanent position at the UN
Yes.
Security Council. The economic climate in the country is
Yes.
appalling, and there is a general sense of an economic build-up
Yes.
up top by the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Abiy Ahmed,
Yes.
who has perhaps come into the ring as a reformist and has brought on board the Somali president. Eritrea is off the sanctions now.
Yes.
Magufuli is now using the wide broom to clean
Yes.
up the political house in Tanzania.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Does our position remain one that is fragile? And have we seen, or does Nairobi view events around the Horn of Africa region, or its interest, to be specific, as radicalized and modified?
You know, this brings out something that a lot of Kenyans have not been paying attention to, Ayub. There is really nothing wrong. I think it would really be a good thing for this country to secure a non-permanent position in the UN Security Council. We must appreciate the role that Kenya has played in stabilizing the region.
Yes, including
And
Somalia, where we have AMISOM.
including Somalia, including South Sudan, including Uganda and Rwanda, and the larger Africa. In fact,
Sierra
when you look
Leone,
at the composition of AMISOM, the Kenyan Defense Forces have been at the top there in terms of providing guidance on securing the larger Africa. So for that particular role, I think this country has earned that place to be sitting in the UN Security Council.
Right.
Because again, for a long time, Kenya has been a prominent, or has been an economic and a geopolitical hub for the region. Unfortunately, that star is still on our level. Unfortunately, on the other side, there is, because of consistent mismanagement of the economy for the last 7 years, we are losing our luster. We are losing our sheen out there on the global scene. Eventually, we may end up with this position, but we may not have so much. And the truth is, the world today is keen. Every nation is usually looking out for a trading partner or an economic or a political partner that has something to offer in return. Kenya has been significantly losing that. And if we are not careful, we may secure this position, because I support that 100. I think it is a good thing for this country in terms of even our global standing. But we must, and as I have been on record insisting, the president still has 36 months to go. This is sufficient time to completely turn around this economy. But he's not going to achieve that with the kind of advisors he has maintained. He is not going to achieve that with the kind of a cabinet he has today. I was reading something interesting in the dailies today. Buhari in Nigeria is seeking to completely ban food imports into Nigeria, because he believes Nigeria geographically and population-wise can sufficiently feed themselves. Unfortunately, In Kenya, we have Mwangi Kiunjuri, who is insisting that the farmers in Rift Valley should stop growing maize, start planting avocados, so that he can be importing maize. I mean,
all right.
We need now a government that works and protects the interests of these people.
All right. Priorities, of course, and this is perhaps a very large topic to talk about, but Ben, we have to end it there because of time. I just want to sample some of the feedback on the line. Abdi Fatah from Wajir says, hi, Jambo, watching the show. And as Kenyans, we are suffering really. Our leaders have failed us, from leaders to eaters. Mungu anawaona. Good night. Salimia mgeni.
Asante sana.
And we take a look at some of the other feedback on Twitter because they continue to come in.
Yes.
And we have this response from one of our viewers regarding what we're discussing. He says that there's need to put into order the appetite of the governors and the national government. There has been no enough lesson from the top by the national government. Wacheni sasa could blame what he says are the governors who are handling the county cash. We can't sample all the best interest of time, and we do appreciate for your contributions, and of course we do cherish your participation here on the program. And that's where we come to a close here on News Compass. Always 3 ways to get in touch with us: on Facebook, facebook.com/Ebru Television Kenya. This discussion will be uploaded on our YouTube page at Ebru TV Kenya, and on Twitter, that is at Ebru TV Kenya. Equally, you can get more of our uploads and the previous discussions on www.ebrutv.co.ke. From me and the team here in our headquarters in Lavington, we'll see you next week by the grace of God for a different show. Bye-bye.